peaceful way that everybody will be satisfied with.
Thank you very much, Akira. Yeah, I was going to
Just a second.
I was going to indeed suggest that you say something about the strategic importance of the location of Taiwan, sea lanes and so on.
First of all, I want to say I'm not wearing a tie. I got a tie from the Taiwan government, but ever since Ma Ying-jeou has been president, I have not worn it. Just on this point about Japan's relationship with China, and let me just say what Minister Chiba cannot say, and that is that Japan has tried very hard over the decades to establish good working relationships with Beijing. But nonetheless, what we have seen as Beijing has made vociferously claims on Japanese territory, and as China imposed the embargo on rare earths exports to Japan. And this has been very, very difficult for Tokyo. And so clearly, I would suspect that in the halls of the foreign ministry, there is a revaluation of what's going on in China, and that will continue. Now, it very well may mean that we won't see visible changes in Japanese policy, but when the opportunity arises where Japan can work with other nations to form this arc of freedom and prosperity, I think that we're definitely going to see that. One thing, Gerrit just talked about, and that is Taiwan's importance to the defense of Japan. As Arthur Waldron, the University of Pennsylvania professor, points out, you look at a map, Taiwan guards the southern approaches to Japan. And I think that there's a growing appreciation in Washington that Japan, of course, is the cornerstone relationship of the United States in Asia. You can't defend South Korea without Japan, and it makes it very difficult to defend Japan without Taiwan. So it is a chain, and that chain starts in Taiwan.
Excellent point, brilliant, thank you. Sir, there you go.
My name is Teddy Lee. I'm from Syracuse, New York. Talking about Taiwan's status and settle very complicated. But I want to know, U.S. government, especially State Department, can clarify President Ma's green card status.
For some funny reason, the topic always pops up.
I think it's in the same place that Obama's African protest.
Well, to be honest, I don't think we can comment on it. The United States State Department has not commented on it. There was one WikiLeaks cable about it just recently, so you might want to go to the most recent WikiLeaks, and there you find all the answers. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I have a question on this. Through the talk, I'm glad to hear that Taiwanese people does have a say in its own identity and its own nationality to be formed. And then I just wonder, since major nations now are now recognizing ROC, which Taiwanese do not want to recognize as well, but then how would the voice be heard that we want to have a referendum in the form that major countries will recognize? Now, looking at the ROC law, it is prohibiting the referendum to be held. But just in case DPP take control, it somehow manipulate this assembly to get the law passed, and then we do have a referendum if the result is what we want. But this is not recognized country, isn't it? How would you recognize its result? So on the other hand, we know there's gentlemen, they are doing a Taiwanese civil government. There's a movement going on there. But US government is just keeping silent, not really helping at all. Okay, and then ROC government is also suppressing it. DPP is not mentioning it. So I just wonder how Taiwanese should be helped in getting their voice out?
Thank you. Again, a very good question. And if I may start answering it, and if anyone else wants to add to it, I think the upcoming election in January is in a sense also already a very important referendum. It does show if the DPP wins at that time, when the DPP wins at that time, that Taiwan doesn't want to go in the direction in which it has been pushed by the Ma government, but that it wants to go in another direction, that it wants to really be more equal part of the international community. And that process itself is sometimes a very lengthy process, as we all know. We have been talking about it for 60 years now. But at the same time, it can go very fast. So suddenly there will be a moment, there will be an opportunity where things start to move very fast, and then we have to be ready to let our voice be heard. And I think this moment is already the 14th of January 2012. After that, of course, one needs to consolidate that, and one needs to go in a direction where this entity is more and more and more a Taiwan than a Republic of China. At the moment, it still has a constitution, and the Ma government says, well, we have to keep the ROC constitution. But what does the constitution say? That the territory is all of China, including Mongolia, so that is not very realistic. So we have to tell the people in the outside world that this constitution that we do have now is a little bit outdated, and we should at some point in time move towards a new constitution. So that process needs to take place in Taiwan itself, and is taking place in Taiwan itself already. Any additional points from you people then?
Well, there was, I mean, you've had at least one, probably like 2 referenda that didn't. And unless, under Taiwan law, you have to have a majority to pass a referendum.
Yeah, right.
And
There's
if you
very,
can't do that, then I don't see the
Yeah.
point myself.
I mean, another point here is the laws are there to serve the people, and the people are not there to serve the laws. I think we should set the precedence of the rights of the people to determine their own future, and not be so darn legalistic that we say, well, there's a little law that says for a referendum you need to go through that and that and that step. So that is, I think, a moment that will come at some point in the future. I'm looking at Yame. Do we have another question? One more question?
We can have 10 more minutes.
Oh, 10 more minutes. Wow, 10 more questions. Let's have the lady here.
Okay, the first one.
You want to come here? There you go. Just a quick question.
Yes, quick question. I think your speeches are most uplifting. I'm very impressed by your talks. When John, you said 主权在人民, something like that, right?
主权在民，就是你的会。
Yeah. So anyway, there was a referendum in Abiyan's, President Abiyan's regime time. And so we went back to vote, but they would not let us vote for referendum. So I think it just, like, I don't know what the result was. So that was done some years ago. And as far as Gordon's speech, I think it's most encouraging that you predict that China will corrupt. And so there is a good future for Taiwan. Do you know how long it's going to take? It actually took almost 60 years, right? It's been a long time. So I'd like to hear that saying that someday China will corrupt and Taiwan will become free. So in your study, how long do you think it's going to take?
Gordon, here's your chance.
First of all, thank you for asking that question. In my book, which came out in 2001, I said it would take about a decade. for the Communist Party to fail, which puts it at 2011. But what we see right now, even for people who were optimistic about the People's Republic just 6 months ago, there has been a very corrosive deterioration in the situation in China. Last year, there were perhaps as many as 280,000 mass incidents, according to one report. We don't know whether that was reliable, but what we have seen is that the number of protests and disturbances has increased dramatically in the last 5 years. And part of it, I think, is really because, of course, problems in Communist Party governance, but I think that there is a consensus among Chinese people that a one-party system is no longer appropriate for China's modernizing society, which means that people may not stand up and protest against the People's Republic today, but nonetheless, they don't support it either. And that's why I think we're starting to see this disintegration of the social fabric in China. As I mentioned, it's not just the number of protests, it's also they're becoming very violent with not only protests and strikes, but insurrections, riots, and bombings, where bombers are considered to be heroes in society. And that shows the disgust and really the lack of, just the utter lack of support for the Communist Party. So I see this happening fairly quickly because I don't think the economy makes much sense. What we're seeing are some very negative trends, and I don't think that they'll be able to maintain things. And you got to remember that the Communist Party is heading into a major transition where we see these so-called fourth-generation leaders giving way to the fifth. That's supposed to start at the end of next year. And that means that basically the party is not able to take the steps that everybody knows must be taken in order to put China on a better path. And that means the party is right now at the point, at a very critical point, it's very vulnerable. So I don't see, if you ask when, I'm saying we should be thinking in terms of months or years. I see this very, very soon.
One more question, and this is the last one. So this is going to be the best question, right?
My name is Edmund Lai, and I have a question. Talk about the referendum, just in case. Well, I think will DPP take over the government, and we have go through a referendum to be independent. Don't you think China has a good reason to invade Taiwan by force, or what will United States government see this situation?
Just my own personal reaction here, the Chinese will always see this as a provocation, and that is just the nature of the regime. They are not abiding by democratic principles, but what we need to instill in our friends in the United States and other countries, that the people in Taiwan want to go over in another direction, and this is a peaceful approach. We are not attacking China in any way. So in order to do that, we need to find an approach that is peaceful and which is convincing to our friends in the United States State Department, because they are the eventual guarantors of Taiwan's safety vis-a-vis China. If China really would want to attack the United States, should be there, and we want to give US all the reasons to be there, and not give it any reasons not to be there, not to give it any excuse to say, well, they're the ones provoking the Chinese side. So we need to do it in a very intelligent way also. I think that's my response to you. Further points from your side? If not, then I'd like to hand it back to John. And I want to thank my fellow speakers for all their work. It was really great.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the talks this afternoon. Actually, if you could, there was a lot of information disseminated today, so if you each could just give a 1 or 2 minute quick summary or takeaway that you want everybody to remember from this great event.
Well, let me try to take off on that. I think history is very important, and we need to look at history, but it's not the only thing. We need to look at where we are today and how we can move forward, and in that process, find as many friends in other countries as possible. Friends here in the United States, friends in Japan, friends back in Europe. I'm from the Netherlands, I'm a Dutchman, you know, and we have gone in Europe to many different countries talking about what the Taiwanese want. And I'm a Taiwan Kiasai, so I have a little bit of time. I have a little bit of right to say what the Taiwanese want. And so with that, that's my short summary. Akira, you are next.
Well, thank you very much. I wasn't prepared for this task. I did enjoy the presentations of all the other presenters today. I learned a lot, and I'm very happy that I took a day off to come here. It's quite worthwhile. It's also nice to see so many friends from Taiwan gather who are interested in this issue. And maybe what I have told you was not very satisfactory, but still, this is all I had to prepare, and I'd be very happy to have any further questions if you would like to know more about Japan. Thank you.
1 minute, John.
You mentioned Edelweiss. Edelweiss, of course, was the national flower of Austria, and the flower. I think Taiwan is Baihehua. Is that Baihehua? The problem with Baihehua, this is the wild lily of Taiwan, which is a beautiful flower. It's a striking flower, and it actually grows. I mean, this is the flower of the 1990 demonstrations, the democracy demonstrations, that really brought democracy to Taiwan. And I love the flower because it's so striking, it's very fragrant, and it just sort of shoots up 6 feet. Now there's a problem with Baihehua, which is it grows so fast, and the flower is so heavy that oftentimes the flower falls over. Now, I don't know if you all know about the Baihehua. It has to be held up, it has to be very carefully managed. And I would just say that as a Taiwan democracy is like that. In 1990, Taiwan democracy just sort of blew up overnight. It shot up, and it's very beautiful, and it's fragrant. It's just a striking flower. It certainly is something that I would be proud of as Taiwanese. But you have to be careful about its balance. You have to be careful about how you cultivate it. And I would just say that you don't want it to either fall over in one direction or the other. You really, the Taiwanese people owe it to themselves to be mature in their democracy and not precipitous. But I'm not sure that that's very inspiring to you, but there it is.
When I went to school, I just assumed that the Soviet Union was going to be around forever. And most times in history, as I mentioned, really there's maybe events, but nothing really significant happens. You know, I hate quoting Henry Kissinger because I think he's such a devil. But he did say something I thought was really significant and very perceptive. About 2 or 3 years ago, he said that at no point in history have things occurred so fast as they are now. And really that we are very fortunate in a sense to live at a time where events are occurring so fast, but it also means that we have an historic responsibility to make sure that events go in the right direction. And of course, this involves many things that we are dealing with, but today the focus is Taiwan, and that means we all have an historic responsibility at this moment for a free Taiwan.
Thank you for that inspiring quote. Well, as Yame mentioned, this event could not have gone forward without our wonderful speakers, but also some of our FAPA-YPG members. So to thank both of them, at the same time, we would like to present the speakers with plaques. And the FAPA-YPG members who will be presenting these plaques are Tim, Tim Sweat, Steve Chang, Andy, and Jenny Lee. So could you please come up here? I think this is a photo moment.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve. John did a job. Your team.
So once again, let's thank our wonderful speakers and our volunteers.